Let me tell you about the day our quiet little slice of suburban heaven called Willow Creek Estates started to rot from the inside out. On the surface, it was picture perfect, the kind of place where every lawn looked like it had been vacuumed, American flags waved in perfect synchronization, and everyone smiled and waved like we were in a damn commercial for the American dream. Kids rode bikes without helmets because nothing bad ever happens here. Yeah, right. I've lived on Maple Lane for 18 years, watching families come and go. But nothing prepared me for what happened to Ethan Caldwell. Ethan moved in about 14 months after his wife Laura lost her battle with breast cancer. 32 years together, wiped out in 18 brutal months. The man was a ghost when he first pulled up in that U-Haul. Retired from 30 years stringing fiber optic cables for Verizon, hands like leather from real work, eyes that looked 1,000 yards away. He just wanted peace. A backyard to sit in, maybe fire up his old ham radio to talk to old buddies, and grieve in silence. Nobody told Karen Beaumont about that plan. Karen was our HOA president, a bleach-blonde force of nature who wore pastel pantsuits like armor and smelled like a Bath and Body Works explosion had gone wrong. Her Escalade had custom plates that read, HOA 1 in case you missed the memo that she was in charge. She ran Willow Creek like it was her personal kingdom and the covenants were the 10 Commandments. Ethan's third day, there she was on his driveway, clipboard in one manicured hand, that fake smile stretched across her face. "Welcome to Willow Creek, Mr. Caldwell," she said in that syrupy voice that somehow managed to sound both sweet and threatening. "We're so glad to have you. Just a tiny thing. Your grass is a half-inch over regulation. That'll be a $75 courtesy notice." Courtesy my ass. I walked my dog past Mrs. Alvarez's yard that same evening, and her grass was practically a jungle. Not a single yellow notice on her door. Week 2, it was the mailbox. Wrong shade of antique bronze. $75 more. I counted at least 14 different mailbox colors on our street alone. Ethan's was the only one that suddenly violated the sacred aesthetic. By week 3, Karen had declared war on his ham radio antenna. She stood there in his yard, stiletto heels sinking into the lawn, tapping her clipboard. "That eyesore is destroying our property values, Mr. Caldwell. It has to come down." Ethan, patient as a saint, tried explaining he had an FCC license and federal law trumped her little rule book. Karen just laughed that brittle laugh. "This is Willow Creek, dear. My kingdom. That thing comes down, or the fines will bury you." You could see it in his eyes, the moment he realized this wasn't about rules. This was about power. A lonely widower was an easy target for a woman whose entire identity was built on controlling everyone else's life because she had nothing else. The little violations kept coming. Citations for his trash cans being out 2 minutes too long. A fine for excessive holiday lights, even though he only had one sad string up for Laura's memory. The neighborhood watched in uncomfortable silence. We all knew it was wrong, but nobody wanted to be next. Then one night, after 2 mini whiskeys and staring at old photos of Laura, Ethan decided on a tiny act of rebellion. He changed his Wi-Fi network name from the boring default to something a little more pointed. Karen Beaumont controls everything. Just a joke between him and the universe. By 6:30 the next morning, Karen was pounding on his door like the Gestapo. Her hair was half done, mascara already running from rage. "This is cyberbullying. Electronic terrorism," she screamed, waving her phone. "I'm calling the sheriff right now." Ethan just stood there in his robe, calm as still water. "It's a Wi-Fi name, Karen. Publicly visible. Not a threat." She was already dialing. That's when the real show started. 23 minutes later, 2 sheriff's deputies rolled up in their cruiser, lights flashing just enough to draw every curtain on the block. Deputy Rodriguez, the older one with the dad bod and the seen-it-all eyes, stepped out first. His partner, Deputy Chun, was already checking his phone like he'd rather be anywhere else. Karen was in full performance mode, clipboard clutched to her chest like a shield, lavender perfume mixing with panic sweat. "This man weaponized his Wi-Fi against me," she shrieked, voice cracking. "It's harassment. He's unstable, probably dangerous after losing his wife." Rodriguez sighed the sigh of a man who'd heard every dumb complaint. "Ma'am, what's the exact threatening language?" Karen shoved her phone in his face. "Look, Karen Beaumont controls everything. He's calling me a control freak in front of the whole neighborhood. Chen actually snorted. Ma'am, that's an opinion, not a threat. Wi-Fi names are public. Unless he puts something explicit or violent, this isn't harassment. Karen's face went the color of spoiled milk. Ethan just stood there, arms crossed, not saying a word. But I saw the folder in his hand, the one he'd been quietly building for weeks. 17 violation notices, all with photos of the exact same infractions on other houses. Mrs. Alvarez's jungle lawn. Mr. Ramirez's fire engine red mailbox. Even Karen's own cousin's satellite dish that had been up for 2 years without a peep. Ethan handed it over politely. Officers, I've documented everything. Seems like the rules only apply when Karen decides they do. Rodriguez flipped through the pages, eyebrows climbing. This looks like selective enforcement. Arizona, law doesn't play nice with that. HOAs have to apply rules equally or not at all. Karen started sputtering about internal matters and maybe we can handle this in-house. The deputies weren't buying it. They told her to back off, handed Ethan a card for the county attorney in case it continued, and drove away. For one glorious moment, the street felt lighter. Mrs. Patel from next door actually clapped from her porch. But Karen didn't leave. She stood in Ethan's driveway, heels sinking, eyes narrowed to slits. This isn't over, Mr. Caldwell. You have no idea who you're messing with. She spun on her heel and marched to her Escalade, perfume trailing like a bad omen. Ethan watched her go, then looked at the folder in his hands. For the first time since Laura died, something other than grief flickered in his eyes, resolve. He wasn't fighting for grass height anymore. He was fighting for the principle. And he started digging deeper that very night, printing every email, every bank statement he could request. A week later, the next bomb dropped. A special assessment notice in every mailbox, $1, $200 for new landscaping. Except Ethan's was $2,847. Enhanced enforcement due to repeated violations. The neighbors started calling each other. Tom, the retired accountant from 2 streets over, rang Ethan's doorbell at 8 p.m. This stinks. Where's the breakdown? Why only you? Karen had united the street against her without even realizing it. And Ethan? He filed a formal records request the next morning. 3 years of financials. Karen sent back pages blacked out like CIA files. But digital footprints don't lie. The game was on. The records arrived in a sad little envelope 2 weeks later. Pages redacted so heavily it looked like a ransom note. But Ethan wasn't born yesterday. 30 years in telecom taught him how to trace wires, and money leaves wires too. He sat at his kitchen table with Tom the accountant until midnight, cross-referencing every payment. There it was in black and white. $15,000 paid to Beaumont Maintenance LLC for emergency landscaping upgrades. Guess who owned that LLC? Karen's husband's cousin. Guess whose backyard suddenly had a brand new irrigation system and stone patio nobody else got? Karen's. Tom whistled low. This is self-dealing. Textbook embezzlement. Every special assessment lines up with improvements at her place. Ethan felt the rage build, but he kept quiet. He wasn't done. He drove past Karen's house under the pretense of walking the dog, wide angle, so he could see the whole backyard. And there it was, an illegal 800-square-foot pool cabana with a full second story, no permit, towering over every neighbor's fence in direct violation of the height covenants she'd fined 3 families for last summer. Worse, a giant vinyl banner flapping in the breeze. Re-elect Karen Beaumont, protecting our perfect community. The covenants explicitly banned political or business signs. She'd fined Mrs. Patel $200 for a tiny Black Lives Matter yard sign 2 years ago. The hypocrisy hit like a truck. Ethan snapped photos with his phone, heart pounding. This wasn't just theft. This was the queen breaking every law she weaponized against the peasants. He shared the photos quietly with a small group. Tom, Mrs. Patel, and Mike Ramirez, the retired Phoenix PD detective who lived on the corner. Mike's eyes lit up like Christmas. She tried to recruit me last month to investigate you. Said you were unstable. I told her to pound sand. Now I see why she wanted me on her side. The twist landed like a grenade. Karen wasn't just a bully. She was a fraud who'd been living like royalty on our dues while we skipped family vacations to pay her assessments. The neighborhood rage shifted from quiet grumbling to open whispers at the mailboxes. Karen felt it. She launched a door-to-door smear campaign, telling everyone Ethan was grieving dangerously and probably hiding financial trouble. Mrs. Patel told her to get off her porch with language I won't repeat. Mike started documenting every lie. Then Karen made her fatal error. She filed a restraining order petition with doctored photos claiming Ethan had threatened her. The judge saw through it in 5 minutes, especially when Ethan's attorney, courtesy of the county, produced the folder. Petition denied. The judge actually referred the case for possible perjury. That's when the dam cracked. Deborah, Karen's own treasurer, showed up at Ethan's door at 10 p.m. Shaking. I can't sleep. She's been double-dipping insurance claims on the same roof repairs the HOA paid for. I have the emails. The federal tip line got called that night. But Karen still thought she could spin it. She scheduled an emergency HOA meeting to address recent disturbances. Little did she know the FBI was already in the parking lot. The community center was packed tighter than a Black Friday sale. Every resident who'd ever received a yellow notice showed up, plus a few who just smelled blood. Karen strode in wearing her best pastel power suit, clipboard gleaming, hair sprayed into submission. She opened with her usual speech about protecting property values and dealing with disruptive elements. Ethan sat in the front row, folder on his lap, calm as a bomb tech. Mike Ramirez sat beside him. Tom had spreadsheets ready. Mrs. Patel had brought moral support and a thermos of coffee strong enough to wake the dead. Karen spotted them and faltered for half a second. We have some unfortunate rumors circulating. Let's clear the air internally before outsiders get involved. That's when Mike stood up. Too late for internal, Karen. The FBI's already here. The room went dead silent. 2 agents in plain clothes stepped through the back doors, badges flashing under the fluorescent lights. Agent Martinez, a no-nonsense woman who looked like she ate bullies for breakfast, walked straight to the podium. Ms. Beaumont, we're here regarding multiple counts of wire fraud, embezzlement, and insurance fraud involving HOA funds. We have warrants. Karen's face did something I've never seen a human face do, melt and freeze at the same time. She tried the clipboard defense one last time. This is a misunderstanding. I was just trying to keep the neighborhood perfect. Mrs. Patel stood. Perfect for who? You skipped groceries for months so my family could pay for your new pool. Tom laid out the spreadsheets on the projector. Every payment traced. Every double-billed insurance claim. The illegal cabana footage played on the big screen. The re-elect Karen banner photo got a collective gasp. Karen started screaming about conspiracy theories, her voice climbing into dog whistle range. He's unstable. Widower grief. This is revenge. Agent Martinez didn't raise her voice. She simply snapped the cuffs on Karen right there in front of God, the neighbors, and the local news crew that had somehow gotten tipped off. The click of those cuffs echoed like church bells. Karen's legs buckled. The perfume cloud turned to pure panic sweat. She sobbed about how she'd only wanted to help, while the agents read her rights. Her Escalade got towed before the meeting even ended. The room erupted, not in chaos, but in the kind of raw, relieved applause you hear when the monster under the bed finally gets dragged into the light. People hugged. Mrs. Patel cried. Even old Mr. Ramirez, who never shows emotion, clapped Ethan on the back so hard the man almost fell over. Ethan just sat there, staring at the empty podium where Karen had ruled for 6 years. For the first time since Laura's funeral, the weight on his chest felt lighter. Not gone, just lighter. The aftermath was sweeter than any revenge fantasy. Karen got 3 years in federal prison, $147,000 in restitution, and a lifetime ban from any HOA board in Arizona. The news called it the Willow Creek takedown, and the story went national. HOA corruption model for the FBI. We rewrote the covenants that same month. New rule. Any expense over $500 needs a full community vote. All financials go online monthly. Independent audits every year. We even planted a community garden right where Karen's surveillance camera used to watch everyone's backyards. Ethan became the quiet hero. He didn't want the spotlight, but neighbors started bringing him casseroles again, not out of pity, but gratitude. Mike and Tom helped him set up Miles's Law. Wait, Ethan's Law. Document everything. Ask questions. Never assume the queen is above the law. The real twist nobody saw coming? Fighting Karen gave Ethan back something cancer had stolen. Purpose. He started mentoring kids in the neighborhood on tech, helped Mrs. Patel set up her grandson's first ham radio, and for the first time smiled when he talked about Laura, like she'd be proud. The neighborhood isn't perfect now. Lawns still get a little wild sometimes. But we laugh about it. We talk to each other instead of hiding behind curtains. And every time a new family moves in, we make sure they know the story. So here's the lesson I learned watching my neighbor Ethan take down the most powerful woman in our little slice of paradise. Bullies only win when you stay silent. They count on your isolation, your grief, your willingness to just pay the fine and move on. But you don't have to. Document everything. Ask the hard questions. And never underestimate the power of a well-timed Wi-Fi name. Karen thought she owned the kingdom. Turns out the peasants had receipts. Now tell me, what would you have done? Ever dealt with your own HOA Karen? Drop your wildest stories in the comments. If this gave you that sweet ha-he feeling, smash that like button, subscribe for more suburban justice tales, and let's keep exposing these clipboard tyrants together. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just winning. It's watching the whole neighborhood finally breathe free. Peace out, folks. And remember, the grass isn't always greener when the HOA is watching.